What's up, fam? So I just wanted to get on here and I want to talk about a few things that is going on, some things that cross my mind, some things that are interesting to me, but then also some things that I feel as though there should be some light shined upon it. She jamming. She's definitely jamming. So as we know, the world is a chaotic place, or can be a very chaotic place. And hold on now. Got two lovebirds walking past and sharing love. That's so sweet and beautiful. So there's some things that that I just wanted to that I wanted to speak on, that I feel that I would like to talk about. The first thing is, I find it very interesting that there are young women who are online and they're expressing how they refuse to be with a man or to coexist with a man. They're expressing that they don't want to be a wife or be made to be a wife, where they feel as though they have to do labor, where they have to work, and where they have to, after coming home from work, they have to tend to household duties or duties in a marriage, which they equate to doing free labor. One woman said that, if she's doing that, then she's pretty much slaving. That is slave work. And that being with men and women being with men in a cohabitation in that way, living with a man and sharing space with a man, that is slave work, and she doesn't want to do that. I think that a woman who is powerful and who is empowered in a certain type of way, being sure of what she wants and what she doesn't want, is a good thing, especially if she can identify the things that she wants in life and what she doesn't want, even if she is comfortable with admitting that she may be a little selfish in some ways. I think that it's a good thing, because then she already knows the things that she does want and then the things that she doesn't want. So, there is no discrepancies later on. Like, for example, there are some women that have children that don't want children. There are women who do not have children and absolutely do not want children. So, they kind of, save the headache, and they're able to honestly say that they don't want children instead of going and having the children when they really don't want them, and then, being unhappy and miserable in their own lives. What I don't agree with is, women saying that they don't want to cohabitate with a man or even be in a relationship with a man without saying that they're a lesbian, because in my opinion, I don't feel as though there's any heterosexual woman that doesn't want to be with a man. And even more so, I don't feel as though there's any women that don't want to be with a man unless they are a lesbian. But the whole male bashing or man bashing, I think that is toxic. And also, I think that it goes against the promotion of family, the nuclear family. So I don't necessarily agree with it totally. Do I agree that women should know what they want and women should freely express that, and they should have the right to choose the things that they're willing to put up with and the things that they are not willing to put up with? Absolutely. I think that women should be a little bit more responsible when it comes to expressing what they do want and what they don't want. If you're going to consider yourself to be an influencer, or if that is your motive and your agenda to influence, or you're trying to gain a big audience, I don't think that men should be bashing women, and I don't think that women should be bashing men. I think that men and women need to figure out how to cohabitate and how to collaborate and be in partnership and even in union with each other peacefully and harmoniously. I think that that is a great strategy in nation building. Okay, this thing is coming down. Let's see if I can readjust this, excuse me. Okay, hopefully that works. Yeah, so, because again, we're human, it's life, it is the divine's will, it is the Most High's will for us to have been fruitful and multiply and to populate the world and the earth. And if, men and women are totally against each other, or if they are going to mindlessly and unconsciously do the things that fulfills the enemy's plots and plans for humanity, and if if you're tapped in and, if you know what I mean, then it would pretty much be making your enemy's job easier, where you're not replicating yourself, you're not reproducing yourself, you're not creating family and community and things. You're kind of just saying, I wash my hands with it, I don't want to be involved, I don't want to cohabitate with a man, or even learn how to. And then also, men need to stop boxing all women in the same categories and boxes, and then vice versa. Women should stop boxing all men in the same box, in the same categories, because everybody is not the same. Everybody is their own individual. We're all uniquely designed. So everybody shouldn't be judged and shouldn't be judged the same and put in the same category. So, I come across a lot of content online, and even in the world, where people it seems as though they're very sensitive and they're very offended by other people's light. And what I mean by that is the healing. People are offended by other people's healing. So if it's someone who doesn't indulge in certain things, or someone who don't indulge in certain behaviors, or don't go around certain community spaces or groups or things, or, if a person operates a certain type of way, people tend to be threatened by that. People tend to want to diminish, and they tend to look down on people. They want to dim their light because an individual is healing, or even better, leveling up, or they just do not do certain things that other people do, and people feel threatened by that. It's almost as though it is exposing their demons and magnifying their shadows. It's a lot of that going on. People feel offended, and they have negative emotions about boundaries, about people leveling their life up, about people becoming a better version of them. And I think that is something that should be checked. I think that people really should check themselves in regards to, other people's life path and journey. And instead of feeling like it's a competition, or feeling threatened, or feeling offended by it, people should be asking questions. People should be trying to figure out how they can, how maybe they can level their life up, or how, they may be able to become better. Asking for advice, being in collaboration instead of, that hater energy, which is very toxic. Then there's a lot of people Then there's a lot of, people confusing showing love and kindness for weakness, which makes it, kind of hard for people that are empathic or compassionate. We should really make it easier for people to express their authentic selves, expressing that love and kindness amongst each other or one another. A lot of people are unhealed and have trauma. I think that people should consider people's, attempts for showing love and kindness and not trying to make it as though it is a weakness. So this is a big topic that I wanted to add and I wanted to talk about. And that is the topic of, these being the days of folks crashing out. They have no self-control. People are in total chaos. So there was this story, right, about this guy who is 30 years old. He goes by the name of Scott Hanna, according to the FBI and the report that was written. This guy, Hanna, was arrested after making threats to cleanse the city of all black people in Cincinnati. So I guess that there was a mega viral riot that had went on with some black individuals. And this Hanna guy felt like no appropriate authority was taking the necessary measures to address the issue. And he felt as though he should take it upon himself to take the law into his own hands. And what he did was he made a post on X and said that he was going to formulate a group or a mob to cleanse the city of black people. So the subject, Mr. Hanna, he specifically threatened to unalive 30,000 people by Sunday. Now, this Hanna guy there was a report made that he had allegedly swung a sword at someone's neck, which the FBI described as partial decapitation. And if anybody knows what a decapitation is, it's the severing of the neck and the head. So, as far as this Hanna guy goes, there's a lot of things to be considered. The individual who is in office, a lot of people that are paying attention and people that can agree with me, they can agree to that with this individual who was in office at the time brought a certain type of energy the last term, which brought a lot of racist people out of the woodworks, a lot of people who were bold enough to show and expose their demons. People who were undercover racists, people who felt like they were superior to people who were not in their race, absolutely exposed a lot of those individuals. So, going forward, present day time, I felt as though, it was very possible, it's highly likely that the same thing will happen. So I felt as though we should be very mindful of that, that there will be characters that come out the woodworks and want to act like that they are superior to other people because of who this character is who is in office. And they feel like, they want to take things into their own hands and have the power to try to eliminate or hurt other people because of the things that this individual in a position of power has said. And because of some of the things that he said and some of the things that he has done has made people mistakenly feel like they have the illusion of authority or power. So that's kind of like how I feel about this individual who made the threat to unalive multiple thousands of people in Cincinnati. And then I want to add that, people say that, they try to demonize or make it bad for people to exercise their Second Amendment right to bear arms, to carry firearms, to train and to do these things. And my thoughts on that is, you know, when there's situations like this where there's a lot of people that, you know, what the youngsters say, crashing out. There's a lot of people that's losing their mind. There's a lot of people who are unaliving people, and it's really for no real good reason. And it's happening so commonly. It's happening so frequently, and it's mindless, but it seems as though, you know, it's just so easy for people to do it. So you really never know. So what is the best defense against people that are losing their minds in all of these vicinities and all of these places of businesses and just everywhere? You know, I would encourage people, I encourage the people that I love and the people that I care about to always make sure that you are equipped, to always make sure that you have, you know, self-defense measures, whether that would be knowing self-defense physically, knowing how to protect yourself in self-defense that way, and also making sure that you have the tools to protect yourself, exercising your Second Amendment right, making sure that you are up to date on your training, that you are training, that you are sharpening your skills, because even though we walk with a righteous intent and we have good intentions and we have good and pure hearts, there are people out here walking around like zombies. There are people out here that are not sober-minded. There are people out here that are heavily intoxicated, so they're not even operating in their right mind. You know, there are people who are, as the youngsters say, they're crashing out because they are intoxicated on extreme levels of anger, because they are intoxicated on extreme levels of negative emotions, because people don't know how to deal with their emotions, because people are going through so many things and they don't know how to cope with grief, with loss, with the things that they are experiencing, all of these things that life will hit you with, all of their challenges. And then to make it even worse again, to be intoxicated on whatever, God knows what. But it's like 2025 is The Walking Dead magnified times 1,000, because in 2020 we saw a lot of that. You know, it's like The Walking Dead, and then it just seemed to have gotten worse. People are walking around on autopilot. People are walking around aimlessly, you know, unconsciously, not really in control of their minds, not really in control of their bodies, not really in control of their own will, their journey, their mental faculties. People are not in control of themselves. A lot of times you can't even tell if an individual is actually controlling themselves. iRobot, and it was showing a lot of robots in the movie, but the way that I perceive and what I see and what I have seen is like people who are like The Walking Dead or iRobot. They're just walking around aimlessly, you know, consumed by social media. People are consumed by, you know, possibly demons that are coming from the controlled substances that they're using, whatever their vice is, heavily intoxicated, over engaging in certain drugs, if you will, where they are over engaging in the consumption of certain things, whether that be alcohol, cigarettes, or all of the above, where their auric fields are compromised. And because their auric fields are compromised, it leaves the door open for negative entities, dark entities, spirits, and other things in the unseen, if you will, to compromise their auric field, to compromise their energy. You know, because people are losing their minds, because people are, as the youngsters say, they're crashing out. I always advise the people that I love and care about to make sure that they not only spiritually strapped, but to make sure that they stay physically strapped as well. And then I wanted to, speak on the unhealed people. You see a lot of that in the world and in online. A lot of people who are unhealed, who are projecting their anger, their confusion, their chaos, their trauma. There's a difference between having strong emotions about a certain topic, maybe even being passionate about it, and then, being undeniably angry. People tend to confuse the two. They tend to confuse having strong emotions about a certain topic with someone being angry. But the interesting part of that is that a lot of these individuals who say these things and accuse certain individuals of being in a certain emotion, what I have noticed so much is that there's a lot of unhealed people who project their thoughts, their assumptions, and their accusations, and their lack mindset on other people, such as saying that an individual is angry because they are expressing themselves in a passionate way, because they are passionate about the things that they are talking about, that the things that they are expressing, and some of the things that are very important to them. I think that some people, really need to, consider what it is that they're doing when they are speaking and when they are making those assumptions and trying to label certain things, almost as if, almost in a way as if they think that, they are an expert, but really it's just insecurities that are coming up and coming out, and their negative and lack mindset and projections is what I have observed. I think that people that like to project negativity and anger and things, I think that what they should do is reserve their right to be silent and to do some introspection. That way they're being more mindful. People should be more mindful of the things that they are projecting onto other people, because one thing that people don't realize is sometimes people unconsciously project their negative thoughts and their lack mindset onto other people, saying that something is what it is when it really isn't, but rather speaking positively over other people. There is a lot of negativity online and people expressing their thoughts, their opinions in very toxic ways, speaking very negatively. So it seems as though, in my observation, that they are expressing their hell in an unconscious way. Sometimes people subconsciously and unconsciously express the hell that they are experiencing by expressing the things that they don't desire. Like the whole male bashing, or people going online and constantly speaking about other people and gossiping. I think that we should shed light on certain things, and we should always tell our fellow man or woman to be cautious or give them a heads up. But if an individual, if all that they have to talk about is other people, I'm not the type of person that I really want to rock with that. I'm not the type of person that wants to be in conversation or community with you. I don't want to have a conversation with you. I don't want to engage in your content. None of those things. I just, I will prefer to keep my distance from things that feeds negativity, that feeds that spirit of negativity, that feeds the spirit of gossip. A lot of people are unconsciously and subconsciously expressing the hell and disdain and the discontent that they have in their lives. And then lastly, I want to talk about something that I feel that people should be self-aware of, and that is engaging in over engaging in things and activities that brings you pleasure. So in life, we're supposed to have pleasure, all of the beautiful things therein, because that is a part of our design, that is a part of our humanity. So we should have pleasure, and we should seek to have pleasure. We should seek to have happiness. I think that when it becomes a problem is when people over engage in activities and behaviors of pleasure for self-healing or for self-medicating. For example, people that may engage in toxic self-destructive activities like, over engaging in controlled substances, alcohol or drugs. When people over engage in things to mask their pain, to mask their hurt, to mask the unhealed parts of themselves as a quick fix, but it tends to remain a vicious cycle of an illusion of lasting pleasure and feeling better while self-medicating and engaging in destructive behaviors. So, whether that be people that are users, are heavily using, overindulging leads to addictions. Overindulging leads to, quick dopamine. Overengaging leads to situations that people will probably not desire, undesirable circumstances. The false illusion of being healed, the false illusion of having fun, but really it just leads to self-destructive behaviors where later on people tend to suffer from over engaging in pleasure activities or pleasure behaviors, and that's what we see. So these were the things that I wanted to talk about. Also, lastly, I want to add something else. There was a report about, I believe it was an agency who, I believe it's some type of health service authority or agency, who did a report and found out that there were doctors in, I believe, Idaho. I can't remember if my memory serves me right. I read the report, but the report was saying that there was medical staff or doctors who were abusing or using the organ donor system in the wrong way. And what they found was that there were doctors who were unaliving patients, and they were keeping them on life support long enough to harvest their organs or to begin the process of the organ transplant process. And what they found in some of these situations was that the patient still showed signs of life. The patient had showed signs of brain activity, and it was something that was going on enough for whomever this authority or organization was for it to bring it to their attention. So there's a lot of things that is going on in reference and concerning organ donor and organ harvesting. So you guys should definitely make sure that you do your homework on that. And what I would say is, because there is a big thing going on, there's some real sketchy stuff going on in regards to organ donor and the organ donor list and just all of the sketchy stuff that's been going on over the years. If you do your homework, I have been hip to this since I was probably 16, 17 years old. So there's some real suspicious stuff, some real sketchy stuff. And, what I would advise, you all, and even like people that I love and care about, You know, if you are on the organ donor list, I would advise you to take your name off the organ donor list until they figure out what it is that's going on. You know, there's a lot of dark stuff going on. There's a lot of dark stuff that's going on the dark market and things. So, you know, it's a lot going on in the world, as I always say, as we all know. Some real sketchy stuff. So, not saying that people should walk around, you know, like they're, you know, the skits word, you know, I don't want to offend anybody, but not like someone has like some big mental issue or concern. You know, some people say, oh, people are paranoid or they're conspiracy theorists and just all of these things, and or that they're even crazy perhaps, you know. But I think that people should keep their eyes and their ears open and be a little bit more mindful of, you know, what's going on around them and what's going on in the world. I understand, like, I have a friend who, she doesn't like to watch the news, and she never has. And I understand that. I have a very good understanding and understanding for people and compassion for people that don't have the mindset and don't have the emotion to be able to take in all of that media and to take in all of the information and just all of the darkness and the negativity. Because it's one thing to be knowledgeable and to have wisdom and to have knowledge and to be in the know. But there is another thing that a lot of people don't talk about. When you are illuminated and when you have that knowledge and when you know certain things, knowledge, yes, powerful, but knowledge also brings a lot of sorrow. It also brings a lot of sorrow. It also brings a lot of heaviness, confusion, and definitely anger on all of these various topics, especially if you're anything like me, where a lot of us who share this kind of information grew up in a way where so many were under this system. We're under this system of a certain type of, where a certain type of information was shared, especially in the public school system. So you're only given certain information, and then there's a lot that's left out. And then there's a lot of conflicting information and a lot of stuff that was not true. So then when you become an adult and when you are able to obtain certain knowledge and you find out that there was a lot of things that were not only true, but you know that individuals have intentionally went out of their way to deceive you and everybody. That's where sorrow comes in. That's where the frustration and the anger comes in, right? So there's a lot of people that are not interested, and there's a lot of people that just absolutely cannot take in certain information. And I absolutely understand that. But I think that at the least bit, I think that what we can all ask of each other is just to at least try to be aware of some of the things that's going on. At least be aware of what's going on at the top and how that affects people at the bottom, you know? So that's pretty much what I wanted to talk about. That's pretty much what I wanted to share. May you all keep your eyes and ears open and love on those who love you, who show you love deeply, who love you genuinely, who makes you feel safe to reciprocate that. Because the world is strange, and it's really not, it doesn't seem as though it's getting any better. Though we can project the positive, beautiful things and the things that we know that God loves, but it still doesn't change the fact that we live in a very dark world, and it still doesn't change the nature of the beast and the nature of these demons herein, right, in this earth. It still doesn't change the condition of the earth and the planet and what these people in higher positions of power are doing intentionally to make it worse. No matter how good we want to be, no matter how righteous we want to be, it still doesn't change what they are doing. So I think that everybody should keep their head on a swivel. I think that people should keep their eyes and their ears open and to try to cling on and to love on. There's nothing wrong with attachment and going back to the basics of family, keeping those close to you that you love, keeping those close to you that you know that love you, genuinely love you, right? Because you don't want to be a fool. We don't need to walk around like fools or like we're blind, and we don't need to give love where it's not appreciated, where it's not reciprocated. So again, being mindful, having wisdom, having spiritual discernment, keeping the people close to you that show you love, that show you that they care is very important. So again, may everybody stay aware, stay alive, stay healthy, stay well, stay blessed. Ashe.